Écoute au fond de toi, écoute le son de ta voix. Redonne une chanson, un petit air sans prétention. Laisse-toi enchanter, laisse ton chant inventer. Sois l'imagination, le jeu de tes émotions, comme un cri du cœur, un fou rire de bonheur. Laisse-toi chanter, comme une crise de pleurs. Soulage la douleur, laisse chanter ta fragilité. When you're feeling sad and blue, there's a voice inside of you, a song just for you. Close your eyes, let the melody melt away your worries. Let it be a lullaby, and you, the baby. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, 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 bye. Bye, Comme un cri du cœur, un fou rire de bonheur. Laisse-toi chanter.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to SoulFood Books. A round of applause for a Wednesday night. I want to officially welcome you guys to Comedy Night tonight. Really looking forward to it. So actually, Comedy Night is tomorrow night. And then we have a performance on Friday night and then open mic on Saturday night. This is the way we kick off. There's a troublemaker. I'm performing Friday night.
All
so
right.
if you're out and about.
We're the warm-up act.
And so Rick and Jeff are the warm-up act of the first Wednesday every month for kicking into December on December 1st. So please, let's welcome back Rick and Jeff tonight, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us here. How many of you are here for the first time at a SoulFood Astrology night? Welcome. Thank you so much for coming here. What Rick and I are going to do is spend 40 minutes or so talking about the general astrological patterns for the month ahead, the collective cosmic weather. Then we're going to take a break, after which Rick and I will look at 3 charts. Anyone who wants us to look at their chart is invited to put their first name, their birth date, a time, date, and place of birth on a piece of paper.
On a sensible size of the piece of paper.
Yeah, a $100 bill is probably a good thing to put it on. And just drop it here or on the table, and we'll do a drawing, and then after the break, we'll take a look at 3 charts.
But before we get into tonight's agenda, and there's a pretty intense agenda for the month coming up, I think, we would like to bring you a few offerings from the Department of Crass Commerciality.
Commercialism.
Thank you. Commercialism. I'm going back to school for the English thing.
That English thing.
That
It's
English
tricky.
thing.
It's tricky.
First of all, I'd like to remind you all that our being Rick Levine and Jeff Jower's newest edition of Your Astrology Guide, this is the 2011 edition, is now available in fine bookstores everywhere, which means specifically right here at Soul Food Books. If you're watching on the web, however, you can find it on Amazon.com or BN.com. But this is a book that Jeff and I write every year. It's our 6th annual, and if you buy one here tonight, we'd be happy to sign them with any name you'd like. Very quickly, also here and available on the net is a DVD that I'm featured in called Quantum Astrology, Science, Spirit, and Our Place in the Cycles of History. And this is also available here. The book is $12.95, I think. Yeah. And the DVD is $19.95. And even if you don't buy one of these 2 items, please patronize Soul Food Books because it's a community-supported place.
Now, for those of you who want to know more about your year ahead, Rick and I do an annual weekend retreat at Brighton Bush Hot Springs. That's BREITENBUSH. You can go to brightonbush.com or stariq.com and find out about this year's seminar, which is January 21 through 23 in the Old Growth Cascades of Oregon. Brighton Bush, if you haven't been there, is an amazing place. And what we do at this seminar is rather than just looking at the month, Rick and I first do an overview of the year collectively on Friday night, and then spend the rest of the weekend going through the individual chart of every attendee, talking about the transits of the astrological patterns that are coming up for them in the year ahead. So check us out at brightonbush.com, stariq.com to find out about this seminar.
And Brighton Bush, if you've never been there, for you Northwesterners, is, like Jeff said, a totally magical place with amazing hot tubs, amazing food. It's a total retreat, and it's a heck of a way to start out your year. But if you can't make that and you want something more exotic, Jeff and I will be doing a longer retreat next November, the beginning of November, in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. And we've been there before, and it's another very, very magical place. And if you want to find out more about that, you can go to either the link at stariq.com, I think.
It's not up yet.
There yet.
As soon as it's up.
Or Heaven and Earth Workshops. That's one word, heavenandearthworkshops.com. And that'll be next November in San Miguel de Allende. And we'll not only be looking at the year coming up, but the years coming up, and also then focusing and working with the charts of the individual participants. It's an amazingly magical place, San Miguel.
Yeah, and for anybody who's interested in studying astrology in a concentrated, long-form kind of way, heavenandearthworkshops.com has lots of astrologers teaching in Bali, England, Mexico. Check it out, if only for the drool factor, but it's a wonderful organization and a great way to meet some of the world's leading astrologers.
Including us.
Oh, them too. Them too.
Actually, we're following the leading astrologers.
That's right. That's right.
So, here we are, the beginning of the ending, the beginning of the last month of the year, December. And boy, what a December we have coming up. What a year we have coming up. What a few years we have coming up. Whew. Can we feel it?
Are there any wiki
Is anyone
leaking
alive
in the
out there?
room? Anybody leaking here who want to share with us? Sagittarius is a sign of the big mouth. And I mean that in a good way. Doesn't mean that all Sagittarians are big mouths or blabbermouths, but part of the function of Sagittarius is to open it up. There you go. Big mouth. Perfect. There you go. There's a quiet one, but at least in public. But it's quite interesting that we had this WikiLeaks event in the midst of not just the sun in Sagittarius, which occurs every year, nor just Mercury, the communicator in Sagittarius, but Mars, the action planet, is also in Sagittarius. Mercury and Mars have been running close with one another. Mercury has made squares to Sagittarius's expansive ruling planet, Jupiter, and to rebellious Uranus. And when the WikiLeaks latest diplomatic leaks came out, which was Sunday, Mars was exactly square or 90 degrees away in a tense relationship with expansive Jupiter. This is an example of the kind of exposure that Sagittarius represents. And it really gets me thinking, regardless of what your positions are politically as to whether this was appropriate or not, it raises a very interesting issue for us on a personal level. And that is, what do we do with truth? It's a conversation Rick and I often have, because while the concept of truth and sharing truth is obviously desirable, sometimes it's wounding and damaging. And Sagittarius is a sign that I think pushes us up against that point of, should I tell or not tell? Is it appropriate or not?
It's surrounded by two signs that are a little bit less telling. Scorpio can certainly tell, but it considers and holds in until it does the most, I don't want to say damage, but intensity telling. And then on the other side, it goes from Scorpio to Sagittarius. And then on the other side, Capricorn, before it tells, it wants to know what's going to happen. It calculates the response, whereas Sagittarius isn't necessarily into calculating the response. If something is truth, there's that feeling of needing to be honest. And I'm not saying all Sagittarians always, but the Sagittarian energy says truth and honesty above practicality, above anything.
Above sensitivity. The dark side of fire. Sagittarius is a fire sign, as are Aries and Leo. And the dark side of fire, the shadow of fire, can be a lack of sensitivity. Because fire pushes out energy, its job is not to gauge reaction. So while in this fiery period of time that we're in, this may arouse some enthusiasm, some honesty, some passion for beliefs, yet we may be lacking the responsiveness to discern what we should say, where we should say it, and who we should say it to.
And I think part of the lesson or the issues that come up this month is a movement from saying it all and saying everything, whether you actually do it or whether it's just your intent, to calculating and deciding what should be said, what shouldn't be said. However, when what is said, I think it will have incredibly intense, profound ramifications this month.
Absolutely. And what Rick is referring to, I believe, is Mercury. Mercury's the communicator. And although Mercury is an expansive and outspoken Sagittarius now, it is moving into, moved in today, into Capricorn. And Capricorn's a hell of a lot more discreet and aware of consequences. One could say that every sign is the reaction to the sign before it. So that if Capricorn is to a certain extent especially calculating about the responses that others are going to have, it may be because Sagittarius doesn't calculate much at all. Well, Mercury has gone into Capricorn, so even though we're still in Sag time, the communicator planet is now trying to button up and button down, and we are running over the next few days into an extraordinary contrast between this fiery Sagittarian openness and something more closed, careful, and calculating.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is run the chart backward and forward for the next week or so, and I want you to pay particular attention to Mercury which just yesterday on November 30th was still in Sagittarius. Mercury moves into Capricorn. Now remember, Pluto has been aligned with the north node of the moon in Capricorn, which is a very intense alignment itself, which really takes the power of transformation of Pluto and it resonates it with a very, very deep sequence of events, very, very powerful. And what's happening is Mercury, which was in Sagittarius along with Mars and the Sun, now moves into Capricorn, and over the next couple of days it lines up with Pluto. At the same time, or right behind it, you see we're coming to a new moon over here. I'll back this up. The moon is coming closer and closer, and it enters Sagittarius on the 4th, lines up with the moon. On the day before, 2 days before, Mars moves into Capricorn, the moon moves into Capricorn, and what happens is that we get this tremendous alignment here of Mercury, of the moon going across through early Capricorn, the moon lining up with Mars, the north node, Pluto, and Mercury, and then Mars coming in right behind it. And normally Mercury would be now whizzed out of the way here, but Mercury turned retrograde, or turns retrograde, on the
10th East Coast, 9th West Coast.
And so what happens is that Mercury never gets far away from this conjunction with Pluto, and in fact by the 13th it backs up into Pluto again on the same day that Mars, now having moved into Capricorn, joins Pluto and Mercury. A lot of astrology, but I want to run that through just in animation again, you know, as we talk about it, because this is A, extraordinary, B, intense, and C, normally when Mercury lines up with Pluto or any planet, it does it once a year or so. But because of the retrograde, it almost holds that position for a week and a half without really getting far away, 2 weeks without really getting far away from it. And during that period of time, Mars comes pushing through the picture. It's quite an extraordinary sequence of events.
Yeah, the exact conjunction's on December 13th, although as Rick pointed out, we're going to be dealing with this as of today, actually.
You mean the second conjunction of Mercury and Pluto
and Mars. All
right,
three
all
come
three.
together on
Yeah.
the 13th of December. Let's put the pieces together. Mercury's communication. Pluto is power and transformation. Mars is assertion and aggression. The moon's north node is a place of integration. These are dense, concentrated, powerful, controlled, aggressive forces, which at their best can represent the potential for making intellectual breakthroughs, for pushing the mind in places where it has been stuck. But the dark side, or the negative side, is if life doesn't live up to one's expectations and one doesn't want to take responsibility for that, it's very easy to be pissed off at everyone and everything. There's an intense mental assertiveness here that, if it has a healthy outlet, can just cut through problems like a sharp knife through soft butter. But if you don't have a place to put it, there's a lot of young, assertive, grumpy, negative, dark potential energy there that can be spit up in undesirable forms or swallowed even in more destructive forms.
Yeah, well said, and I think that something that you said struck a note in me, because you said like a sharp knife through soft butter. However, if the butter's soft enough, you could move through it just as easily with a dull knife or a 2x4.
Right.
And I think that's what happens here, is that even though there's a focus and an intensity, the sun's still in Sagittarius.
Right.
And so we may forget that.
Right.
We may forget how deeply, how quickly we can cut through, because there's no resistance, because we do have that laser sharpness, and yet the optimistic, tell all, be honest, you know, here's my opinion, which I assume is truth and should be your opinion too. It's so easy to assume that we can swipe and cut things that we don't necessarily intend to cut.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's taking astrology to the next level of analysis. Because what Rick is doing here is trying to tell, or is telling, the story of sort of this joyous, playful Sagittarian who thinks life can be fun or life can be good, but happens to have a nuclear-powered weapon in its hand. And therefore, out of the innocence of one's beliefs or the righteousness of one's own beliefs, can sort of underestimate just how potent and how powerful those words can be.
And in fact, we're even encouraged more to forget about how incisive and surgical that swipe can be with that Mars, Pluto, Mercury, North Node alignment on the 13th, because the Sun, which is still back here in optimistic, philandering, happy-go-lucky, party animal Sagittarius, which is also doing all of those things and seeking the higher meaning and, of the cause of the universe, But what happens is that the Sun in Sagittarius is also coming into a square, and on the 13th we get the opening square of the Moon in Pisces squaring the Sun, the Moon now aligning with Jupiter and Uranus, which has had two conjunctions, the first one back in June, the second one in October. They're both now turned direct again and will make their third and final conjunction the first week of January, which we're going to be feeling all this month because it's exciting. It's more Sagittarius, Jupiterian, uplifting good news, and it squares the Sun. And again, it's just another reason to forget how much power and impact a few words used either for a good purpose or for an unconsciously negative purpose may yield or wield.
Absolutely, and of course, we're going to be recipients of this, which means we're going to be recipients of comments or observations that cut to the quick. And if you're like me, meaning defensive and uptight, chances are...
Not like a Taurus?
Yeah, like a Taurus. When we feel, but if we feel. A very interesting piece of this is to sort of rise above one's own vulnerability or insecurity to take on the information head on. The reason I'm saying that is because the south node of the Moon, which is a path of least resistance, is insensitive, take it personally, Cancer. So our collective potential to connect to our most vulnerable places is fairly high during the 18 months or so that the South Node is in Cancer. Yet the North Node, the point of growth or integration, is in Capricorn. And what that means is not that we're insensitive to what people say, but that even if you've been wounded by what someone says, or if you've quote unquote wounded someone by what you said, don't stick around with the wound. Deal with the information and ask if it's useful or not. Because as much as if you say something that insults me, I may whine or cry and attack back or do something in a reactive and negative way. The fact is, maybe you're telling me something useful. So that after I go through my little crying game version of response and reaction, what Capricorn, what Pluto, what Mars, what Mercury are saying is this information usable? Whether you like it or not, can you grow from it? Can you take it and change your life in a constructive way? If so, it's worth taking a little punch in the nose if it brings you to an awareness that'll take you much further.
Okay, you know how like in the Olympics when you're doing the diving competition, you get points, but you get extra points for level of difficulty?
Yeah.
Well, we have another level of difficulty here. I mean, a Mars-Pluto conjunction by itself is difficult because of the level of intensity that it can unleash. And I mean, Pluto is volcanic in the sense that a volcano has intense pressure that creates heat enough to melt solid rock, which then expands and needs a way out. But you see, there's a problem, there's a mountain on it. And so a healthy volcano finds ways to relieve that pressure so that the lava can flow and build things like Kauai. I mean, this is good news. However, an unhealthy volcano is one that is like a pimple that's been blocked off, and it grows and grows, and it becomes an explosion like Merapi,
Yeah.
in Java, where Jeff was at the base of just 2 months ago.
Yeah. It's not my fault. I didn't do it.
And what happens is that if the energy is clogged and built up, if emotions are not able to be expressed, then there can be a sudden release of temper or feelings that creates effects that we don't necessarily want or that are not necessarily positive. And of course, if you add Mars, the heat of Mars, which is what we have here, that adds another layer of intensity or difficulty. But when I started this, what I was talking about is that the additional level of difficulty, which we mentioned and then passed over rather quickly, is that on December 10th, Mercury turns retrograde in one of its three-week retrograde phases during the year. And it turns retrograde and is retrograde, meaning that from Earth's point of view, it looks like it's moving backwards because it's closer to Earth, and so we lose perspective. And it's retrograde from December 10th all the way through the 29th, which should pose interesting situations through our holiday plans.
Yeah. Well, the holidays are always a good time to take your highest aspirations and turn them into shit with your own family because of the disappointment of not fulfilling those aspirations, and particularly with Pluto in Capricorn. And Christmas has occurred with Pluto in Capricorn, with Pluto conjunct the Sun the last couple of years, and now we've got this warm-up, this other stuff that's going on. Mercury retrograde represents negatively a period of time in which Mercury's issues of communication, travel, detail, and machinery, equipment, technology functions less effectively.
Back up your hard drives now.
Right.
I mean, as much as Jeff and I are not great fans of the negativity that many astrologers throw at Mercury retrograde, it is interesting that the three largest internet outages that have happened in the last 20 years have happened on the day that Mercury turned retrograde. I mean, there's something about that motion, whether or not it impacts us each individually, that is almost like a bridge during rush hour. It clogs. And Mercury retrograde, at the point at which Mercury appears to move backwards and is closer to Earth, it's like our information lines, our wires are carrying more traffic, and they can fray, they can break, bridges collapse, etc. Now, I don't mean out there in the real world, I mean our information bridges. So it's a really good time to tend to your communication interpersonally so that you don't get those backups or clogs, and so that if your hard drive tweaks or something happens, at least you have a recourse of not being swept up in something because of your own inability to deal with things. Are we losing power now?
No, just your screensaver.
Oh.
Astrology, traditional astrology has ideas about affinities between planets and signs. It's called rulerships. Many of you probably know that certain planets are at home or rulers of or comfortable in certain signs, and they're uncomfortable in others. Mercury is not comfortable in Sagittarius. And the reason is that Mercury likes data and details and digestible bites, and yet Sagittarius takes gigantic gulps and philosophical leaps and prefers broad generalizations.
Are you saying that because Mercury retrograde backs up into Sagittarius?
On the 18th of December, Mercury returns to Sagittarius, so it's sort of a double Mercury retrograde. Insofar as communication is more complex when Mercury is retrograde, and yet in Sagittarius, this little sort of clerk-minded individual is trying to grasp concepts which are beyond its clerk-like status. Now, if you were born with Mercury in Sagittarius, it's your life purpose and part of your life purpose, and you've had plenty of practice. But for the rest of us, having Mercury backing into Sagittarius 5 days after this exact Mars-Mercury-Pluto. So here's the thing. If you think in the middle of the month, my God, I'm going to have to say that thing, it may cost me my job. Maybe it'll cost me my life. maybe it'll cost me my relationship or my relationship with my family. But I've got to. Then Mercury goes back into Sagittarius, and like we're very tempted to sort of do it accidentally. You know, I really thought this out, and I decided that my marriage is worth more than picking on this particular nit. And then Sagittarian-wise, a couple of glasses of wine, something that, whatever pushes your buttons, it's tempting to get sloppy. Mercury retrogrades a little sloppy to begin with. Mercury retrograding back into Sagittarius with that boiling pimple underneath it has a tendency to go, oops, I didn't mean to tell you what an a-hole you were and how angry I've been at you for the last 22 years, but oops, you're an a-hole who's been pissing me off for 22 years. No offense.
And the Mercury, as it backs into Sagittarius, also conjoins the Sun, which during that time, it then also squares the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, which are getting closer and closer and closer. So we may not even need that second glass of wine. It's like a homeopathic remedy.
Right.
It takes very little potency to drive a resonant circuit, and our circuits are resonant to say way too much, or to express our opinions, or to stand on the pulpit that isn't ours and say things that the congregation really doesn't want to hear just because you feel like you have to.
Right.
One quick piece of cleanup, and that is in respect for Mercury, who Jeff accidentally reduced to the job of clerk, or maybe purposefully. I'd just like to point out that this is also the psychopomp who basically negotiated with Pluto to get, the release of Ceres' daughter, Persephone. Mercury isn't just a clerk. He's also one clever dude, sometimes too clever, and sometimes he does the clerking thing really well. But I didn't want to just kind of reduce him into clerk mode.
Well, of course, Mercury's more than that, but Mercury works best without an opinion.
Mercury does, oh, that's right. So in Sagittarius,
it has an opinion.
Yeah.
And what I meant by clerk was simply one who is functioning with data as it is in a somewhat objective fashion. Yeah. And yes, Rick is right. There are obviously higher and more elevated expressions of mercurial energy, but still, it's going to work best when you have no opinion.
No, and this actually brings up something else that I think is quite important. And because Mercury doesn't have an attachment, you know the saying, don't shoot the messenger? Which I sometimes tell to my clients who are in marital turmoil, don't marry him either, if there's another person involved. The messenger, it's not the message. Mercury is not the message.
That's right.
So that's really what you're saying.
Right.
And it's because of that, and this is very significant for us this month, because Mercury is content agnostic. In other words, Mercury doesn't care what the information is. His job is to connect the points and deliver the information, which you're right, Jeff, is very clerky. But because of that, Mercury is the only one of the pantheon, of the planetary pantheon, who can cross back and forth over the river Styx, which is why he was sent by Jupiter and Ceres to go deal with Pluto in the underworld, because none of the other gods could cross into the underworld without losing their memory and back. So what becomes so significant here is that in this period of time, we have Pluto conjoining Hades, or Pluto, the god of the underworld, the lord of the underworld. And so we do have an opportunity here, or a chance, to use Mercury's clerkiness without actually being attached to the message or the opinion before he backs up into Sagittarius, in order to go into the underworld. The underworld is our unconscious, basically, to go into our unconscious and bring the messages up with that great intensity or power. It's the upside of Mercury, so to speak.
Yeah, good. Well, I think we've been doing this in a Mercury retrograde way, insofar as we've sort of hit big themes in the middle of the month. But let's bring chronology back into the program.
Chronos.
And which is Saturn, by the way, Father Time. Over the next few days, Mars forms a square in 2 days, a tense 90-degree angle with Uranus, which is a perhaps the most explosive planetary combination you can have. Mars is an igniter, and Uranus is looking for a reason to ignite. And a square, a tense 90-degree angle between the planet of action and the planet of revolution, breakthrough, breakout, certainly can represent a kind of agitated electric field which can provoke negatively explosive behavior, but inventive, original, and brilliant actions as well.
And what this means is that you shouldn't carry dynamite with a fuse and a match in the same pocket. This is like a good time to practice your understanding of not seeing how many toes you can hang over the edge of a cliff without falling. It's like there's no reason to court that kind of danger. The upside, though, or the other side is you don't want to suppress the energy because that creates the tension for the lightning to strike. And in a way, we're all like lightning rods that can attract stuff during this period of time. So it's important for us to figure out how to keep the energy moving without being reckless or stupid.
Right. What is there an activity or something you'd like to do that's a little bit different? That's a way to operate with Mars square Uranus. Changing your methods, experimenting a little bit is, Rick is right. We need to incorporate and utilize the energies to have the highest expression of them.
Skip the skydiving.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
But what makes this particularly significant, this Mars-Uranus square, is that Uranus is stationary. Uranus is turning around and moving forward on December 5th. Stations are the periods around planets changing direction, and planets are more powerful at their stations. Astrology is sort of the opposite of how we think life works, in the sense that the slower something moves, the more powerful it is, because it occupies a place for a longer period of time.
There's more inertia.
Right. And certainly Uranus moving forward, meaning that the planet of revolution, breakout, breakthrough, et cetera, rebellion, is coming to a point of more overt expression. And with Mars square that Uranus just 2 days before that turn, it makes this an explosive time. But again, I can't underscore too strongly Rick's idea that find something radical, revolutionary, or different to do in your life. It doesn't have to be on a grand scale, and I've talked about this a lot. Whenever we talk about modifying or changing behavior, what usually happens is that we don't want to act on it until a crisis occurs, until it becomes an important issue. And yet, how do we expect to do well at something that's unfamiliar without rehearsal? So with the Mars-Uranus square, it isn't the time to go skydiving or to drive, get on that wild motorcycle. It may be a time where you're just going to change your daily routine a little bit. You're going to try to cook some spicy dish you never cooked before. Give yourself an opportunity to be successful at revolution on a small scale before you take on the Pentagon.
That's what I always say.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take on the Pentagon. We've got, is this being recorded?
Actually, I think we're going to take on the hexagon.
Much better.
Much safer.
Well,
certainly not the cross.
Well, the other thing about December 5th that's so interesting, besides the Uranus station, is that's the day of the new moon.
And here we go. The new moon at 13.5 degrees of Sagittarius, which, interestingly enough, in this opportunistic, expansive, gregarious, partying, kind of energetically extroverted sign, at a time when Mars is squaring Uranus still, even though it was exact a couple of days ago. The interesting thing here is that this new moon is harmoniously, supportively, cooperatively sextile to Saturn, which is kind of like a governor that you don't mind having because it makes you feel safe about riding that motorcycle, because you have the sense enough with Saturn restraining you not to go to the edge of the cliff, not to accelerate faster than you should be. Mars sextiling that new moon in Sagittarius.
Saturn.
I'm sorry, thank you. Saturn sextiling that new moon in Sagittarius, I think, is a bit of a saving grace.
It's a wonderful saving grace. New moons, as I've mentioned here many times, are naive. They're innocent. New moons are the beginning of a cycle. And at the beginning of any cycle, we don't have experience. And although we may be fresh and excited, we still don't necessarily know really where things are going to go. This is a new moon in Sagittarius. Let's just take this bow and arrow out in the backyard and just shoot some arrows out there and see what happens. Well, what this Saturn sextile, as Rick points out, this harmonious 60-degree angle between responsible Saturn in socially aware Libra, suggests that we have the guidance. And what this also implies is, if you want to take a leap of faith or take a step towards learning something or taking on a new adventure, look for an experienced guide. Saturn is experience, and it's in Libra, the partnership sign. It means there's help, not help that's going to get in the way of your big adventure, the trip, the book you're going to write, the graduate program that you're going to take on, but you're going to get somebody, something solid and reliable. I want to address, before I move on here, before we move on, there's a question before we began. I don't know, somebody violated our rules and asked us a question, you know, but...
and you're violating another one by answering it.
I know, but what the heck? Just
I've noticed this rule.
you have. Shut up. Good. All right. And that is, what happens when a new moon or a full moon touches something important in your chart? So there's a new moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. If it's conjuncting something in your chart, it's pouring this enthusiasm and all that's represented by the new moon into that planet in your chart. If it's hitting an angle in your chart, that is the horizon of the vertical axis of your chart, it's going to be more important. It's going to be more likely to be an influential event in your life. The underlying tone of this is contained adventure. Saturn sextile the new moon. But where? What house does it fall into your chart? If it's hitting Mercury in your chart, then it's going to be of the mind. If it's touching Venus in your chart, it may be of the heart or of art. So that's basically a simple and a simplistic way of describing this.
We have another thing cooking here that's also very interesting, that I think is another bit of a saving grace, but it won't be necessarily totally easy to manage. And that is, we've been talking a little bit about Mercury retrograde. Well, a couple of months ago, we were talking about Venus retrograde, which is rarer than Mercury's retrograde. Mercury's retrograde is 3 times a year, and Venus is about once every other year and a half.
Right.
Yeah, something
right.
like that. Okay. But Venus was in Scorpio, where she's not thoroughly comfortable. I mean, she may use it, but it's not her best place to be, because Venus is light and playful.
The corset's a little tight with Venus and Scorpio. It may be hot, but it's not comfortable.
Well, it's volcanic and it can be intense, but it's not comfortable, because Venus likes to be more lighthearted, and Scorpio is not Scorpio wants to go for the passion and the intensity. Not all bad news, but Venus had moved into Scorpio, then retrograded back into Libra, and over these past few days,
last month.
But it was about a week ago. Venus moved back into Scorpio, and the reason why that's significant is, while we have this planetary buildup here, you know, from the 3rd all the way through the 13th, what happens during this period of time is that Venus forms a sextile with with Mercury it already did, now it's retrograde, then it'll retrograde back in, but with Mercury and Pluto, and this is right about here on the 13th. Venus is just past there, but you can see how it's still within just a degree. Right there on the 10th is when it's exact. Let's see, those Venus trines are exact around...
The sextile.
Yeah, the sextiles are exact, exactly sextile. From around the through the 8th period of time, 8th, 9th.
Now, what this suggests is that a well-argued or well-defined idea or plan can come up with resources that we didn't think were available. That's what Venus and Scorpio, one aspect of Venus and Scorpio is finding the love, finding the resources, finding the reward, finding the values that aren't easily found. And yet when they're hooked up harmoniously with all of these planets in Capricorn, it means if you're sharp with your plan, with a goal, with an idea, and you're able to express it in a compelling form, the person who you thought couldn't love, or the organization that said they didn't have the money, or the thing you want to do for which you felt you lacked in resources, there's a reasonable chance that you can come up with them. So there's some powerful opportunity to mine love, money, and resources when your pick, when your shovel are extremely sharp and you know how to use them properly.
Am I supposed to say something now?
No, it's his turn.
Oh. Yes.
All right. Where are we? Full moon?
We're mid-month. We've already hit the new moon. So now we're moving on through the month. And I think that maybe our next stop should be around the full moon on the solstice.
Right. And it's an odd full moon. And the same things that I said about the new moon in terms of it touching something in your chart makes it more meaningful. Here are the things that are weird about this full moon. Well, the weird thing is this. Well, it's an eclipse, for one thing.
Oh, well, that's weird.
It's a lunar eclipse. And Dane Rudhyar, the great 20th century astrologer, said a lunar eclipse means closing the door on the past. The moon represents a repository of previous experiences, memories, or feelings. And if there's an eclipse on the moon, or a lunar eclipse, it's about letting go of something from the past. Where conversely, Rudhyar said that a solar eclipse was imposing the moon, memory, feeling, reflection, and the past on the sun, on the will, the ego, the present that's driving forward. A solar eclipse says, hold on.
And there'll be a solar eclipse 2 weeks later.
Right, because they always come in pairs. But the other piece is that it's at 29 degrees. And didn't we have that? The full moon last month
We did.
was at 29 degrees. And if a full moon represents a revelation at its best, what it's suggesting is, at the very end of a sign, that this revelation doesn't last very long.
It's almost like it doesn't have time to grab on into, I mean, the term void of course moon means a moon that's late enough in the sign that there's no aspects. And this is a void of course eclipse.
Sort of, yeah.
Well,
yeah. Except that it's an aspect. So technically it's not, but the same principle applies.
But
the moon goes void the minute,
the
minute the full moon has passed. Then the moon is void, meaning that it's hard to crystallize or to bring down to earth the energy that it represents.
But it's not even just that it's changing signs.
Right.
It's changing seasons.
Right.
Which ups the ante of that inability to hold on to what was even more.
Right. Although there is some congruity here. If there is an eclipse in Gemini, and a lunar eclipse is about letting go of something from the past, and Gemini is this multifaceted, diverse, and widely spread sign, we get a pretty clear signal here about maybe you're juggling too many balls in the air.
Or maybe you can let go of the stuff easier.
That's right.
More easily than at other times.
Right. But as the moon changes and moves into Cancer, it's going to be opposing the cleaner Pluto about 8 or 9 hours later. And Pluto, too, is about elimination. It's just that. Maybe at the eclipse and the full moon, you have this revelation. Gee, I don't need that vacation, that person, that object, that whatever that I thought I needed. I don't need it. Because it's Gemini, we can say anything without really having to invest fully emotionally, then the moon goes into Cancer and go, oh no, but I really do. It sort of requires us to take an idea and test it against something deeper, more personal and subjective.
Let's throw into this mix on this eclipse is that the Sun and Mercury, and therefore the eclipsing or the eclipsed moon, are also squaring this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which are now within a half a degree of, well, they're within a degree, 25 and a quarter. They're nearly a degree apart, moving toward their third and final conjunction. And so that's brought into the mix, which I think puts stress and tension on the idea that it's the last moment of this optimistic, it's like, if I don't do it right now, I know it's going to all shut down. I'm going to lose this opportunity. And what happens when we have those kinds of feelings? We do stupid shit. You know, because we feel like there's this sense of immediacy, that it's an eclipse. We're letting go of something, but we may be right up against the wall and can't quite do it. And this puts a lot of immediacy or urgency onto it. Mm-hmm. And then when you add the square to these kind of this awareness downloading of crazy new ideas and information, I think it can create an interesting spin. And not only is this square intense, but also, interestingly enough, we have the spiritual aspect of this ongoing Neptune-Chiron conjunction that harmonizes with the eclipse. And so I think here the ultimate out is yoga. Well, I don't mean sitting in a posture, but I mean taking an attitude that's spiritual and practicing what that might be like.
Yeah, that's good advice, particularly for travelers. Gemini and Sagittarius are travel signs. This is a travel season. We've got all this TSA crap coming up about who gets to fill you up, how much, how many.
Which is all Mars-Pluto event. I mean, that's Mars-Pluto stuff.
That's right. The tendency to be sensitive to being violated increases, because if you've ever felt violated, and everyone has in one way or another, that Mars-Pluto really triggers that. There's a building a potential of resentment about control, Pluto's control, Capricorn's control. That builds up, then we wind up in an airport here, and people may start freaking out. So a little Zen behavior with that Neptune involved, which means step back and watch the show. If you feel you're on the edge of something that's unreasonable in terms of behavior, while there are times, sometimes we need to be unreasonable to get to the next thing, I would say under these conditions, this is not one of those times. That the consequences for erratic behavior are perhaps greater than usual, and therefore your acts of rebellion should be very, very carefully considered at this time.
So by the end of the day, just hours after the eclipse, the sun, first the moon moves into Cancer, and then the sun the sun moves into Cancer that afternoon.
Capricorn.
Thank you, Jeff. The sun moves into Capricorn, which is the winter solstice, which represents that moment from the northern hemisphere where the sun has gone as far south, as far away as it can go, and it's a holding still point, but it's also the wide swing. It's the beginning of the point of return. It's the longest night. It's the Yule. It's the, many of the northern hemispheric religions have holidays that celebrate light, or the returning of the light, or the expression of the light of God in human form, however you choose to look at it. It's like it's the dark night of the soul, and then the light gets to return.
Right.
However.
Well, no, I can't get over the as much as I try to be constructive, I can't get over the potential for stupidity that we have available here. I mean, a sun, retrograde Mercury in Sagittarius can join the sun, square Jupiter and Uranus, and oppose the moon. Basically represents kind of stuff that's irrepressible and not necessarily very thoughtful. And again, there is a potential for liberating ideas here, but it's risky.
And it's whose liberation?
Well, right. You know.
I mean, I can have a liberating idea that may be really good for me to have.
Like taking over your neighbor's apartment. Hey, Rick feels confined in his apartment. If he just invades the apartment next door, he'll have twice as much space. Liberation.
All right, well, anyhow. But as the sun, I'm not planning on any takeovers or whatever. But as the sun moves into Capricorn, and as we get closer to the end of the year, that sun creeps up on Darth Pluto. And it actually makes the conjunction, or it joins it in the afternoon of the 26th.
Boxing Day may have real fisticuffs this year.
Oh, jeez.
Well, a Sun-Pluto conjunction is an annual event of profound self-examination or blame. Just let's externalize it. I mean, it's pretty intense. And obviously, the holidays provoke a lot every year. And as Rick, said, it's a solstice, which also intensifies energy. So to have the Sun Pluto join Pluto 5 days after the solstice, and
an eclipse,
and an eclipse, and the day after Christmas, it's a pretty intense period of time. But the bigger issue always, I think, with Pluto, and particularly Pluto in Capricorn, is to take power over yourself.
Yeah.
To the conscious, that's a good sun word, the conscious mastery, Capricorn, or commitment to mastering power and desire to use them constructively, can be an incredible holiday gift. It requires self-trust.
Self-trust. And I think also it requires a selfishness and a lack of selfishness, because it's conjunct Pluto, and Pluto doesn't like it when you use his power for your ends. And so there's this sense of when Pluto conjoins, or when the sun conjoins Pluto, the question becomes, what can I do in my own world? What can I restrain? What can I process? What can I transform that in some way will not only do me good, but do everyone good? It's the Spock Vulcan thing. The good of the many outweighs the needs of the one or the few. And here with that Pluto conjunct the sun, I think that becomes part of it. And there's another issue of self-restraint that's kicking here, because we have Mars coming into squaring Saturn, which we'll talk about more in a minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, that even though it may be for the good of all, it doesn't mean it's not for the good of you.
Well, that's actually what I was saying. It's selfish and selfless.
That's right.
If the two don't match up, then we're not going to get away with it. If we're just mastering ourselves so that we can party more or have more fun or get out of doing a chore or whatever, it has to be in some way linked, the inner and the outer.
Yeah, but if anyone in a moment of great love or creativity or imagination knows that what they're tapping into is not theirs. I mean, all the great inspiration is connecting to something larger than ourselves. And what that can offer at its best in a reasonably healthy person is potency and power that is connected to something larger. But trust yourself to manage the power. That's been my theme of all of this Pluto in Capricorn. Don't trust corporations, don't trust the government, trust yourself. And as individual cells in the body of humanity, as that sense of self-trust and empowerment grows, a chain of human responsibility and revolution and creativity can transform the world in a non-destructive way, in a non-hierarchical way. But we do, as Rick pointed out, we end the year on a very responsible note.
Well,
and 2 days early. We're ending the year 2 days early this year, by the way.
That's the voice of reason saying that we end the year on a responsible note.
The 29th.
I would phrase it, because I tend to phrase things with cautionaries, and that is, if we end the year on a stupid note, we'll know it really quickly. Because Mars, the planet of assertion and aggression and impulse, squares Saturn, the planet of restraint and law and rule. And so there's this sense of, this is a square, there's a dynamic interaction between yes and no, do it and don't do it. And so if we choose to do it without thinking through the consequences, we are encouraged, though, by Mars being in Capricorn, where it does tend to think about the cause and effect. But still, it's squared to Saturn, in a way, is almost an instant karma if we do something that's not right. And that threat hangs over us, maybe enough that we won't do the stupid shit.
And Mercury turns direct the same day,
Yes.
suggesting that perhaps we can see clearly enough where we're not being as clever or as committed as we could be, and therefore perhaps facilitates the course correction. All right, so that is an exciting December. We're going to take a 10-15 minute break to enjoy the food, the holiday gifts, the books, and each other in the ambiance of Soul Food, and then we'll come back and look at 3 charts.
And again, we urge you each to practice a little bit of retail therapy. Again, our book is available. They're stacked up by the cash register. Show your support for the store by buying it or something else for a gift.
Okay.
Thank you all.
J'en vois des qui se donnent des bijoux dans le cou. C'est beau mais quand même, ce ne sont que des cailloux. Des pierres qui vous roulent et qui vous coulent sur les joues. J'aime mieux que tu m'aimes sans dépenser des sous. Moi je m'en moque, j'en vois passer les trucs en toc, les cages dorées. Toi quand tu me serres très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. J'en vois des qui se lancent des regards et des fleurs, puis qui se laissent quelque part ou ailleurs, entre les roses et les choux. J'en connais des tas qui feraient mieux de s'aimer un peu comme nous, qui nous aimons beaucoup, et d'envoyer ailleurs valser les bagues et les cœurs en collier. Car quand on s'aime très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. Moi pour toujours, j'envoie valser l'épreuve d'amour en or plaqué. Puisque tu me serres très fort, c'est là toi qui vaut de l'or. Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. Les ennuis, les chagrins s'effacent, heureux, heureux à en mourir. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça fait quelque chose. Je n'avais jamais ôté mon chapeau devant personne. Maintenant je rampe et je fais le beau quand elle me sonne. J'étais chien méchant, elle me fait manger dans sa menotte. J'avais des dents de loup, je les ai changées pour des quenottes. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui ferme les yeux quand on la couche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui fait maman quand on la touche. J'étais dure à cuire, elle m'a converti, la fine mouche. Et je suis tombée tout chaud, tout rôti contre sa bouche. Car des dents de lait quand elle sourit, quand elle chante, et des dents de loup quand elle est furie, oh qu'elle est méchante. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui ferme les yeux quand on la couche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui fait maman quand on la touche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui ferme les yeux quand on la couche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui fait maman quand on la touche. Je subis sa loi, je file tout doux sous son empire. Bien qu'elle soit jalouse au-delà de tout, et même pire, une jolie pervenche qui m'avait paru plus jolie qu'elle. Une jolie pervenche un jour en mourut à coups d'ombrelle. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée. Tous les somnambules, tous les mages m'ont dit, sans malice, quand ses bras en croix, je subirai mon dernier supplice. Il en est de pire, il en est de meilleur, mais à tout prendre, qu'on se pende ici, qu'on se pende ailleurs, s'il faut se pendre. C'est pas toujours facile quand on vit loin des siens. La nostalgie parfois nous tient. C'est un besoin vital. L'appel du giron ancestral. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est patauger dans le présent. Les petits poirons d'Écosse, en papotant comme des gosses. Tous ensemble on se saoule, les souvenirs ont des baroules. On fait teinter nos verres à l'amour, pas à la guerre. Voyage d'hiver, voyage retour, je laisse mes rivières, mes lointains parcours me guider légère, le vent sous mes deux ailes, moi l'américaine, sous la terre maternelle. Se retrouver en famille, c'est plonger dans le cœur de nos vies en devenir, de nos passés, douleurs, douceurs. Tous ensemble c'est chaud, car on se doute bien que bientôt, chacun sur son radeau, partira en solo. On refait connaissance en cherchant l'innocence, sans risquer d'abîmer cette fragile intimité. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est tendrement réaffirmer la chance qu'on a de s'aimer, maintenant et pour l'éternité.
Wanted me to mention one more time that these are available at the cash register.
Most
The
pros I
First
know are
Astrology
not as
Guide
good at it
2001
as people who know
and
less.
Quantum Astrology, my
Yeah.
DVD,
So I have a lot
Science,
of
Spirit, and Our
Mercury,
Place
a lot of Virgo in my
in
chart.
the
Does that
cycles
make
of
retrograde
history,
and
long title, but
retrograde
worth it.
affect me?
You might be
Get
more
'em while they
sensitive
last.
to it. You
Okay,
would be
we're
more
ready to do a
Mercury
few
sensitive.
charts for the hardy of you. We have Decker. When we say your name, you need to identify yourself. That's me.
Okay.
Okay. And thanks, Decker, for making us awesome drinks tonight. And thanks, Sarah and Clint, for hosting this every month.
Yeah.
Okay. Decker, July 31st, 1983.
There's some very interesting contrasts in this chart. The angles of the chart, that is the northeast southwest of a chart, are considered to be significant points. And Decker has the moon on the descendant, Pluto and Saturn widely conjunct the ascendant, and Mars conjunct the midheaven. What's that? Yeah. So this is strong, willful, almost crisis-oriented. And yet, the contrast is Neptune conjoined the south node. It's like putting a sweet person in the middle of a war zone. In that there's access to something spiritual and sensitive, Neptune conjoined the south node, Yet, environmentally, circumstantially, there's a lot to be managed.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jeff, because I thought you were going somewhere else other than with the
Yeah.
however. I thought you were going to say, however, that Mars on the midheaven is in yielding emotional Pisces. I mean, Cancer.
Yeah.
And so that there's the sense of the moon in Aries. Aries moon wants action right now. Mars is Aries' key planet, and Mars is in Cancer, kind of wanting to, almost fearful of acting, wanting to hold back.
Yeah.
And yet there's this fire grand trine. Well, with the moon in Aries, obviously the sun is in Leo, but Mercury in Leo trine the moon, and that south node Neptune in Sagittarius, along with Jupiter and Uranus. There's a lot of fire in this chart, but it's almost like it's hidden to some extent.
It's hidden because Pluto, look, the ascendant is how we come across. So the ascendant is Libra, which is basically pacifying.
Nice.
Libra rising wants to be nice and keep the fires down, because when you have the moon in Aries conjunct the descendant, square Mars and oppose Pluto, we don't know when mom's going off, whether, her second pack of Camels for the day is going to burn the house down or not. But there's certainly a little bit of Simpson sister-in-laws there present. But the suppressive energy is Libra rising, let's be nice. Pluto, let me control myself, with Saturn. The two most controlling planets are in a very gracious sign, rising. And so this is a chart that I think is extremely good at handling crises, particularly other people's crises.
It's also good at making them and making it look like you weren't the one who initiated them.
Yeah, that's the other part.
Well, I mean, we also have Mercury squaring the, Jupiter, Uranus in a way, Mercury and even Venus. There's the sense of being able to pump the energy up. But again, I keep coming back to the moon in Aries and the Mars in Cancer, making it look like he's not the one that's doing it.
Right. For another reason, too, the moon is in the 7th house, which is the house of others. So planets in the 7th house are easily projected. They're often experienced as something outside of us. So moon, emotion, in fiery Aries, it's not me. It's come up. And Mars and Cancer are going to manage that.
Intense and intense and somehow packaged in a way that I think Decker makes it look easier than it actually is for him.
Right. And I think that you should. It might be to allow yourself to be an agent of disturbance is a good thing. That the discretion that you've had to develop in life is not meant to dampen down change, but it is so that you can manage it well, not kill it, but be a conscious provoker of change or of birthing new things, of being an agent for that, because you've had to deal with some hard stuff, so you can trust yourself to do that kind of thing.
And before we move on, let's just look at that Sun trining Uranus, or trining Uranus Jupiter.
Jupiter.
I mean, there is a bit of electric brilliance when you're hot. It's the question is, how do you figure out ways to get back to that spot where, because it's like when you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. But there's like this brilliance when you're in the flow, when you're in that motion, that I think suddenly overtakes all the other stuff, all the other resistances and fears and all the other stuff in the chart.
Yeah. And I think part of it, engage your trickiness as an asset rather than something to be ashamed of. That's coming from the North Node, a point of growth or integration in the trickster sign of Gemini, so that you can be the person who is able, with charm and with skill, to sort of trick or maneuver rather than, having to be, straightforward. I don't think you have to be. I mean, obviously there are circumstances that absolutely require it for ethical and other reasons, but giving yourself permission to play with us is probably beneficial for us and you.
And I think from a standpoint of timing, that next year is like the opening of a game that is quite exciting for you as Jupiter moves into fiery Aries, completing the grand trine with the Sun and Jupiter and Uranus, followed by Uranus over the next couple of years. I think that this is a terribly exciting time for you, and it's hard for you to know today what's going to happen over the next couple of years that will open your life in ways that you may not be aware of yet.
But you should get some nice big pictures when the year turns and Jupiter goes into Aries in January.
February, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Decker.
Cheryl?
Hey, Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl. Was it something we said?
Was it some recognition?
Oh, no, I was saying that to everyone who was leaving.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, Cheryl has a Moon-Mars aspect, just as Decker had the Moon and Mars at right angles with one another.
Oh, you mean was there some recognition in what we were saying to Decker that felt to you? Ah.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the structure is different. You have the Moon in the first house in Leo, so it belongs to you. You are the goddess troublemaker. You are the queen of your universe. You're not, returning serve. You're serving. But you do have this Moon-Mars opposition, and the Moon is habit and routine, and Mars is spiky, punchy, dynamic. And I often think of Moon-Mars people as people who need a high degree of stimulation in their daily lives. If not, they're big troublemakers, and sometimes both.
Well, and I think that troublemaking actually,
It's
this
good.
is an opposition. And so it's almost like you need people around you who are fiery and feisty and brilliant and more eccentric than you might be in order to stimulate you, to remind you of those things are all you, but sometimes it's easier to recognize it in someone else than it is in you, because
Right.
with that Venus and Mercury and Saturn all in Taurus, there is a bit of an object at rest tends to stay at rest. There's
He's
a bit
trying to
of,
say that those of us with Mercury and Taurus are dumb. That's what he's trying to say.
no, that's what you're saying about your own Mercury.
Wasn't it?
What's that?
Stuck? Stubborn?
Stubborn,
Yes.
stuck, yes.
Good.
Yes.
Right, and the point is that with that North Node in Mars in Aquarius, that's taking back your genius. That you are not limited to operate in a small Taurian framework of, oh, this is real, and that's not real, so I have to ignore that. There's something to being a Gemini, certainly, and there's something to having a North Node in Mars in Aquarius, which says, no, I can synthesize disparate elements here, where I know what's real and practical, but that's the starting point. That's not where you need to end up necessarily.
And we have 2 in a row Sun trine Uranuses.
Right.
You know,
Smarties.
yeah, which is the brilliant, electric, eclectic, part of you that is not lazy. Again, when you get into that motion, when you get charged by something, it's like you can be the lightning rather than just hanging out waiting for it to strike.
Yeah, you have a grand trine in there. Planets that are aligned in a triangle of Mars, Uranus, and the Sun. And that is very electric, very original, and perhaps then what the Taurus planets serve as is just having, again, a good foundation of common sense from which you can
I
go
didn't do
much
it.
further. No. All right, trends. What's going on with this chart?
Well, again, we have another, early Sagittarius, which is going to get hit by, in the fire signs in this chart. The Sagittarius and the Leo are going to get awakened over the next year as Jupiter moves through fiery Aries, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's really worthwhile to think big. But the irony may be the bigger you think, the sort of less obsessed with yourself you need to be. The reason is you have the Moon in Leo in the first house, conjoined the South Node in Leo, and it's like, I'm the sun, I make things shine. I create that, and it says, well, yes, but that's not quite your job now, or that's not your full-time job. It's almost like drawing off. A South Node's like something we need to scrape off the top, but don't get all the way to the bottom of. So it's drawing off of the will, the personal power, the creativity, the charisma that your Moon conjunct the South Node in Leo has, without letting that take over, I think.
And I would say one other thing about timing, and that is that Saturn, which was here when Cheryl was born, has gone all the way around, and in roughly 2005, 2006, there may have been some significant changes that kind of put you in a new direction. Maybe move or whatever, but relationship change, something, and it's almost like over the next year, it's like you're coming to the end of a 6-7 year period of preparation for what it is that you will be doing that you can't really quite see around the bend yet, but it's like the tide is going to change, but you need to finish up the old stuff before you move into what's next, and this is over the next year or so. Make sense?
Thank you, Cheryl.
And is that Crystal? Is that spelled that way? Is that you? How did we pick like two people next to each other? That's geographically non-representative.
Now, you might notice the third house, which is this one, is pretty big.
Because
Crystal was born in Alaska, and it's a big state.
wrong answer.
It's the further you are from the equator, the more distorted the houses get. Yes?
No.
No. It'll be huge in all of the unequal house systems. Placidus, Coke, they'll all be big at extreme northern or southern latitudes.
Except
Only
porphyry.
equal house will fix it, or porphyry.
Yeah. But what we do have here is a midnight birth in the midnight time of year. I mean, look, part of the reason, I mean, these planets are all clustered below the horizon, and yet this house, as Jeff has pointed out, is like 3 signs wide almost. It's Sagittarius, Capricorn. No, it's actually a full 2 signs and then some.
Right.
And that's because in Alaska in February it's night for pretty much all of the day and night.
Now,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Now, looking at patterns, 3 straight Sun-Uranus trines.
Yes. How fascinating.
That the sun of will and consciousness, aligned in a creative 120-degree trine with inventive Uranus, is about inventing oneself, is about creating a version of oneself for which there isn't necessarily a model. You get to make it up.
So
all
three of you should get together and figure out how to escape from somewhere. Escape, because Uranus is the planet of instantaneous freedom. It's like kapow, idea that's not restrained by anything.
Right, and all 3 sort of grew up in a kind of psychologically confining environment, I think, because all 3 have Mars in hard aspect to the moon. The moon is the most primal sort of a planet. It's the most early life instinctive. And when the moon is hooked up with Mars early in life, there's some battling going on. It may be the family struggle for survival. It could be a single mother. It can be just a busy household. But the sense is that the moon, which is where we hang out, you can't just chill when you got a moon Mars. You sort of get early on in life, gosh, I've got to be on my toes. I'm going to get run over by things.
Right, which can also make you, us, or someone with that aspect, feisty, aggressive, assertive even though the moon in Pisces isn't necessarily a particular assertive moon. It's a chill moon.
Right. But it also means the competence to deal with crises.
Yeah.
And I think the need for those kinds of challenges. But obviously it's better if you choose them than if they're thrust upon you against your will.
And we talked about the sun trining Uranus as the brilliance and the openness for change or even making change, but we didn't talk yet about well, let's see, what is this? Is Venus trine to Pluto, which is an ability to go deep with feelings, that passions are strong.
Stay this way. Stay away from the speakers.
Passions are strong. The intent. You're someone who is not just intellectually brilliant. That's the Uranus trine the sun. But when it comes to physical, emotional, engaging stuff, you're willing to go there and in fact require that as part of the deal.
Well,
It's
yeah.
not, there's no like pussyfooting around. It's like that's where the mother lode of intensity is. Let's go there.
Well, and with the moon of feelings in the 5th house of play and romance and imaginative Pisces, that presents a rather broad canvas to play in. In terms of current cycles, we were talking about Sagittarius. There's Mars in Sagittarius. So Crystal's getting a Mars return.
Yes.
So Mars is about back where it was when you were born. It initiates a new 2-year cycle. And Mercury has been there. And it certainly talks about the appropriateness of sort of kicking up more ambition now. And again, paddling to stay in place is not ambition. It's Mars and Sagittarius. It's like paddling up maybe a river where you'll get lost, but at least it's something new. It is about expanding horizons, certainly.
We would also assume that although this event is in the past, it's still resonating in the current, and that is over the last year, Saturn opposed your moon, and Jupiter and Uranus conjoined it, which is a pretty intense wake-up call, shuffle, end of something, newness of something else. And you may be at the very, very front end of the cycle, but whatever it is that happened last year is a done deal. It was last year, but it resonates for a long time to come, I think.
Good. Thank you, Crystal. And thank you, Soul Food, and thank you all. We'll
And
see
thank
you
you,
here.
Jeff.
And thank you, Rick. And we'll see you here next month. Happy holidays.
Yes, that's right. We'll see you here next year. And don't forget Brighton Bush, January
21st through 23rd. 3 Mars moons and Sun triangle.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
On se retrouve ensemble pour Noël en vacances. Réunion de famille, c'est pas toujours facile quand on vit loin des siens. La nostalgie parfois nous tient, c'est un besoin vital. L'appel du giron ancestral. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est patauger dans le présent. Les petits poirons d'Écosse, en papotant comme des gosses. Tous ensemble on se saoule, les souvenirs on débaroule. On fait teinter nos verres à l'amour, pas à la guerre. Voyage d'hiver, voyage retour, je laisse mes rivières, mes lointains parcours me guider légère, le vent sous mes 2 ailes, moi l'américaine sous la terre maternelle. Voyage d'hiver, voyage retour, je laisse mes rivières, mes lointains parcours me guider légère, le vent sous mes deux ailes, moi l'américaine sur la terre maternelle. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est retourner boire à la source de nos sangs, de nos âmes, du mystère de l'homme et de la femme. On se retrouve ensemble pour Noël en vacances. Réunion de famille, c'est pas toujours facile quand on vit loin des siens. La nostalgie parfois nous tient, c'est un besoin vital. L'appel du giron ancestral. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est patauger dans le présent. Les petits poirons d'Écosse, en papotant comme des gosses. Tous ensemble on se saoule, les souvenirs on débaroule. On fait teinter nos verres à l'amour, pas à la guerre. Voyage d'hiver, voyage retour, je laisse mes rivières, mes lointains parcours me guider légère, le vent sous mes deux ailes, moi l'américaine sous la terre maternelle. Se retrouver en famille, c'est plonger dans le cœur de nos vies en devenir, de nos passés, douleurs, douceurs, tous ensemble c'est chaud, car on se doute bien que bientôt, chacun sur son radeau, partira en solo. On refait connaissance en cherchant l'innocence, sans risquer d'abîmer cette fragile intimité. Se retrouver ensemble, c'est tendrement réaffirmer la chose qu'on a de s'aimer, maintenant et pour l'éternité. puisqu'on est seul, puisqu'ils sont si nombreux. Même la morale parle pour eux. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire. Je l'ai puisé à l'encre de tes yeux. Je n'avais pas vu que tu portais des chaînes. À trop vouloir te regarder, j'en oubliais les miennes. On rêvait de Venise et de liberté. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire. C'est ton sourire qui me l'a dicté. Tu viendras longtemps marcher dans mes rêves. Tu viendras toujours du côté où le soleil se lève. Et si malgré ça, j'arrive à t'oublier, j'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire aura longtemps le parfum des regrets. La 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 la. Mais puisqu'on ne vivra jamais tous les deux, puisqu'on est fou, puisqu'on est seul, puisqu'ils sont si nombreux, même la morale parle pour eux. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire. Je l'ai puisé à l'encre de tes yeux. La 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 la. La 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 la. Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas. Je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. des nuits d'amour à plus finir, un grand bonheur qui prend sa place. Les ennuis, les chagrins s'effacent, heureux, heureux à en mourir. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. C'est lui pour moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. Puisqu'on ne vivra jamais tous les deux, puisqu'on est fou, puisqu'on est seul, puisqu'ils sont si nombreux, même la morale parle pour eux. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire, je l'ai puisé à l'encre de tes yeux. Je n'avais pas vu que tu portais des chaînes. À trop vouloir te regarder, j'en oubliais les miennes. On rêvait de Venise et de liberté. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire. C'est ton sourire qui me l'a dicté. Tu viendras longtemps marcher dans mes rêves. Tu viendras toujours du côté où le soleil se lève. Et si malgré ça, j'arrive à t'oublier, j'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire aura longtemps le parfum des regrets. Puisqu'on ne vivra jamais tous les deux, puisqu'ils sont si nombreux. Même la morale parle pour eux. J'aimerais quand même te dire tout ce que j'ai pu écrire. Je l'ai puisé à l'encre de tes yeux. La 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 la. La 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 J'en vois des qui se donnent des bijoux dans le cou. C'est beau mais quand même, ce ne sont que des cailloux. Des pierres qui vous roulent et qui vous coulent sur les joues. J'aime mieux que tu m'aimes sans dépenser des sous. Moi je m'en moque, j'en vois valser les trucs en toc, les cages dorées. Toi quand tu me serres très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. J'en vois des qui se lancent des regards et des fleurs, puis qui se laissent quelque part ou ailleurs, entre les roses et les choux. J'en connais des tas qui feraient mieux de s'aimer un peu comme nous, qui nous aimons beaucoup, et d'envoyer ailleurs valser les bagues et les cœurs en collier. Car quand on s'aime très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. Moi pour toujours, j'envoie valser les preuves d'amour en or plaqué. Puisque tu me serres très fort, c'est là mon trésor. C'est toi qui vaut de l'or. J'en vois des qui se donnent des bijoux dans le cou. C'est beau mais quand même, ce ne sont que des cailloux. Des pierres qui vous roulent et qui vous coulent sur les joues. J'aime mieux que tu m'aimes sans dépenser des sous. Moi je m'en moque, j'en vois valser les trucs en toc, les cages dorées. Toi quand tu me serres très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. bagues et des cœurs en collier. Car quand on s'aime très fort, c'est comme un trésor. Et ça vaut de l'or. Moi pour toujours j'envoie valser les preuves d'amour en or plaqué. Puisque tu me sers très fort, c'est là mon trésor. C'est toi, toi qui vaut de l'or. Saveur d'une nuit espagnole, au cœur de Barcelone, j'étais jeune et frivole, enivrée d'amitié, de vin doux et aromatisé. Je me glisse confiante dans l'esprit de l'étranger. Saveur d'une nuit espagnole, au cœur de Barcelone, j'étais jeune et frivole, enivrée d'amitié, de vin doux et aromatisé. Je me glisse confiante dans l'esprit de l'étranger. J'étais jeune et frivole, enivrée d'amitié, de vin doux et aromatisé. Je me glisse confiante dans l'esprit de l'étranger. J'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie du désir. Mais peut-être j'ai envie de rajeunir. J'ai envie d'inventer une histoire hors la loi, un fil de sensualité, une source qui me boit. J'ai envie d'éprouver l'attente et l'attention, la fièvre du toucher, brûlure de la passion. Viens, toi, approche-toi, donne-toi sans malice, sans pudeur, sans caprice. J'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie du désir, j'ai envie du désir. Mais peut-être j'ai envie de m'épanouir. J'ai envie de sentir l'amour à fleur de peau et la peur de mourir quand on vole au plus haut. Envie de m'abandonner, doucement me faire fondre. Envie de me consumer dans le rouge de tes cendres. J'ai envie du désir, mais peut-être j'ai pas envie de vieillir. J'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie, j'ai envie du désir. Envie de te regarder, te gorger de plaisir. J'ai envie de t'aimer sans jamais rien saisir. Je n'avais jamais ôté mon chapeau devant personne. Maintenant je rampe et je fais le beau quand elle me sonne. J'étais chien méchant, elle me fait manger dans sa menotte. J'avais des dents de loup, je les ai changées pour des quenottes. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui ferme les yeux quand on la couche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui fait maman quand on la touche. J'étais dur à cuire, elle m'a converti, la fine mouche. Et je suis tombé tout chaud, tout rôti contre sa bouche. Car des dents de lait quand elle sourit, quand elle chante, et des dents de loup quand elle est furie, oh qu'elle est méchante. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui ferme les yeux quand on la couche. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée qui fait maman quand on la touche. Je subis sa loi, je file tout doux sous son empire. Bien qu'elle soit jalouse au-delà de tout, et même pire, une jolie pervenche qui m'avait paru plus jolie qu'elle. Une jolie pervenche un jour en mourut à coups d'ombrelle. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée. Tous les somnambules, tous les mages m'ont dit, sans malice, quand ses bras en croix, je subirai mon dernier supplice. Il en est de pire, il en est de meilleur, mais à tout prendre, qu'on se pende ici, qu'on se pende ailleurs, s'il faut se pendre. Un jour il faudra être à l'heure. Mon petit bagage tout prêt. Et dans ma tête, un peu de lumière et du calme jusqu'aux pieds, jusqu'au bout des pieds, pour accepter que vienne l'heure où nous serons soudain malgré nous dans les idées floues. Mais que tout cela est flonflou, flonflon, flonflou. La vie c'est comme un bal masqué, l'au-delà c'est la liberté. Mais que tout cela est flonflou, flonflon, flonflou. La vie c'est comme un bal masqué, l'au-delà c'est la liberté. Après m'être battu, après m'être perdu, assez pour dire, j'ai assez vu. J'ai vu qu'il y a partout